Talk about the Fed meeting. So in just 24 hours, we have a make or break moment, and everything could.
What's up, it's Cinema Shogun here, and sadly, as I reported to you all yesterday, Nickelodeon star Amanda Bynes, I'm sure a lot of you all know who Amanda Bynes is, she was found naked and alone, roaming the streets of LA, found in a very dangerous area at that, and luckily someone stopped for her. She was able to realize on her own that she was going through something. She called 911, and now she is in a mental hospital on psychiatric hold. So it's a very sad and scary situation. Now, some of you all may have been following up with this Amanda Bynes stuff for years. Some of you all probably have no clue what's going on. Amanda Bynes at one time was in a conservatorship, much like the Britney Spears situation. But much like the Britney Spears situation, a lot of people wanted her to be out of the conservatorship. And ever since, there's been some questionable things happening with Amanda Bynes. And don't get me wrong, I can't really necessarily agree with the conservatorship, especially when it comes to these child stars and stuff, because you know their families like to take advantage of them and to make money off of them. In many situations, these kids are adults now, are just cash cows for these families. So it's always weird. You know, these conservatorship conversations are always weird for me. Because on one hand, I don't support conservatorships per se. But on the other hand, I know that us on the outside looking in, we don't understand these situations fully. You know what I mean? We don't fully understand the situation that's going on with Amanda Bynes. We didn't fully understand the situation that was going on with Britney Spears. Often, the people closest to those people understand those situations way better than us, so sometimes I try to refrain from speaking out too loudly against these conservatorships, because it's clear to me that these people need help, although I would say maybe in a different way. But Amanda Bynes was released off her conservatorship, I think about a year or so ago. And you might remember, I think the last time we really heard from her was when she was accusing her then fiance of some pretty wild things. Let's go ahead and watch this clip, and then I'll be right back.
He told me that he stopped taking his medications. I looked at his phone, and he was looking at mom and son porn. He vandalized his mom's home. He broke all of her pictures and put salmon under her bed. His behavior is alarming, and I'm afraid of what he'll do. I forgot to mention, for the past 6 months. He needs serious help. I kicked him out of my house.
Salmon under the bed? Like, is that a thing? Do people actually do that? Like, damn, that, I don't know, that kind of like threw me off. It almost felt like a all that skit. But I guess she was serious. Now, her and this guy, they got together again after that video. It turns out that he wasn't, or at least he says that he was not watching mother-son porn. He was watching MILFs. And I guess that was enough for Amanda Bynes to forgive him. A really weird situation. But that was, I think, the last time Amanda was really in the headlines for something weird. I know her and that guy, I believe his name's Paul, I always forget. I believe they got back together, but now they are split up. They're just friends, according to Paul. But Paul came out and said yesterday that Amanda Bynes is off her meds, and that she has been off her meds for a while, and that she is acting straight up wild. And I mean, I have no choice but to believe him, seeing as Amanda Bynes was found naked roaming the streets of LA. But of course, oh man, of course, people are upset now. People are fake offended. People are enraged that anyone is covering this story. They are trying to turn this into like I don't even know how to explain it, but it's the usual suspects, and I deal with this all the time when covering Britney Spears. It's these people that try to pretend like they're mental health professionals, and they come out and I mean, it's just so insane to me the way these people act. And they're trying to spin it now as if this was a moment of empowerment for Amanda Bynes. As if this was a moment of woman empowerment. The fact that she called 911 all on her own after roaming the streets of Los Angeles butt naked. So now they're trying to say that anyone covering this story, like me or the people who put this story out, we're all sexist and we're bad people because we acknowledge that Amanda Bynes is having a problem. And I see this all the time in these fan bases. These people are weird. They encourage people with mental health issues to spiral out of control. And it's utterly sickening. It's sickening to me that these people, I don't know if they're like super feminist or what, but they're trying to spin this like, oh, that this isn't a bad look. No, this is empowering. This is a good sign, they say, for Amanda Bynes, because she called 911 on her own after roaming the streets of LA naked and being found by some passerby. I kid you not. Let's go ahead and let's read a couple of the posts on Twitter. I find it really disrespectful that the headlines say Amanda Bynes was found naked and alone and placed on a psychiatric hold, removing her agency. She was able to recognize that she was in a psychosis, ask someone for help, and call 911 herself. That's effing impressive. Yeah, it's really impressive that Amanda Bynes was found naked on the side of the road. But they're taking offense to the wording that she was found, which she literally was. The pictures are on the internet. She was roaming around butt naked in LA. And that she was placed on a psychiatric hold. Yeah, because she literally was placed on a psychiatric hold. But these people speak out and they act like they're doing good. They act like they're a positive voice for mental health, when in reality they're not. These people are complete idiots, and the sooner our society and our culture stops looking to idiots like this for advice, and the sooner we stop listening to these freaks, I'm sorry, the better. The better. We are at where we're at right now in this country as far as mental health problems go, because we are enabling these weirdos who like to diagnose people with all types of stuff. They're heavily medicated on things they probably don't even need. Spoiler alert, a lot of people in America are on all of these psych meds for depression, meds for ADHD, meds for this, meds for that, and most of them don't need this stuff. They're turning people into walking freaking zombies and nutcases. It's like, there are tons of people in this country that don't need to be on all of these meds, okay? But there's also tons of people in this country that probably need to be on meds and they're not. So it's like an all-around messed up situation. But make no mistake about it, these doctors these days, they are prescribing people stuff out the wazoo, left and right. You're diagnosed with this, you're diagnosed with this. They're coming up with new names and new labels for people every single day. They're coming up with a new mental health issue every day, and they come up with a new drug that's supposed to cure you of it. It's getting absolutely ridiculous. And we can't even begin to have the conversation because a lot of the loudest voices are people like this who, oh oh God, you said placed. You said she was found. And then they freak out, and it's like, there's no room for conversation. And if there's no room for conversation, then we're never going to get in.
Is that...
You know you're not going to be able to go back to China after this goes public, right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay. Jesus, man, that's wild.
So, at the time, this was pretty deep into the COVID quarantine. Well, not deep. This was like February. So about a month in, give or take. About a month in, at the time, the quarantine policy was pretty much you couldn't leave your apartment without special permission. You needed to get permission from the local government to leave. And it wasn't exactly treated as like an optional thing. So I was following all the rules. I did everything I could. I'm sitting in my apartment. I had just gone to bed about 2 hours prior, and then all of a sudden I hear like this loud banging on my door. Like almost as loud as it can get. So I wake up, of course, because I'm like, who's banging on my door? And I go to open it, and I creak the door open a little bit, because I didn't want to use the eye hole for some reason. I creaked open the door a little bit, and I just see a shiny police badge, and my first thought is, oh, because I have no idea why they're...
If you're still using TikTok today after all the hoodies that are out there, I feel sorry for you, my friend. A lot of bad things have been said about this app for the...
This might look like just a regular old tricopter drone, but unlike a typical tricopter, all of the motors tilt with a single servo so it can spin at extreme speeds. Why would I want it to spin so darn fast? Well, when fitted with some wings on the arms, and when the tilt angle of all of them is just right, it actually requires substantially less power to hover than if the three motors were just oriented vertically like a regular tricopter drone. This seems very counterintuitive. If we tilt the motors to...
So, Microsoft are now bringing DALL-E's AI image generation. There's a cool little loophole in physics where with the right weight and the right aerodynamics, you can have an electric vehicle with 1,000 miles of range that never needs to be plugged in. Probably one of the coolest EVs that I've ever seen. It's the one glitch in physics that they don't want you to know about. Let's get started. Behind me is the three-wheeled, solar-powered Aptera Autocycle. Not quite a motorcycle, and not quite a regular vehicle either. Today we have this vehicle, which is an alpha production unit, and we have this one, which is a beta production unit, which has the full suspension ready to go on this test track here in California. This is a first look at the Aptera, so we'll get the outside aesthetics from the alpha, and how everything works from the inside with the beta. Let's take a look at alpha first. The very first thing you'll notice about this car is that it only has 3 wheels, 2 in the front, 1 in the back, and it's also covered in solar panels. The solar panels can provide an additional 40 miles worth of range every single day, which is rather convenient since the average commute for someone here in the USA is only 30 miles. So in reality, you could own a vehicle that never needs to be plugged in ever as long as the sun is shining, which should be good for another few billion years. Even though there are solar panels on the top that allow it to be charged up with the sun, it can be plugged into a regular 110 outlet to get 150 miles of range replenishment overnight, or it can charge up using any DC fast charging network, including Tesla's. One of the ways the Aptera is so efficient is each of the 3 wheels has a motor inside of it. Now we can see that better on this version right here. They're actually hub motors. You have the 3 AC lines running up inside of the hub, as well as coolant lines, those are the black ones up top, to keep everything cool. Aptera knew I was coming, so we have everything here on display, which is great. Each of the motors has their own inverter. You can see the DC lines going back, and there's a battery which sits underneath the driver compartment right here. Most of the weight of the Aptera is going to be here in the front for efficiency. I do think, though, that the rear wheel is pretty fascinating. Coming over here to the back side, you can see that it's a single-side swing arm, kind of like what you would see on a motorcycle. Coming over here to the inside,
Trump is going to be arrested. Putin is going to be arrested. I hope the people doing these arrests have the moral authority to undertake these arrests and aren't basically criminals themselves. 3 million awakening one.
Why is it when you post a video it gets hardly any views, whereas someone else posts a video on exactly the same topic and it gets tons of views? It's all to do with the algorithm, right? Well, no actually. More often than not, it's about humans and how we interact with your content. And the chances are you're not intriguing them enough to click. Here's how to fix that in 8 minutes. 3 questions for you, 1-word answers in the comments below. Do you research video titles before you start your own video? Do you write a title before you start a video? And do you write multiple titles before you start your video? Now I know some of you are cheating and saying yes to all of those questions. I know that the majority of creators simply don't do this or do it half-heartedly. I should know because I'm guilty of it myself. Sometimes. But not today. You see, I can't be lazy about writing a title for this video because I'm working with a title expert by the name of Jake Thomas. I don't know which one of them is a title expert, to be honest. The last time we collaborated on a video about titles, it got 500,000 views in 6 months. So we're doing it again. So yeah, J-Dog. No pressure. But to prove we kicked off with the right approach, here are the many titles we came up with and the intent behind them before we started this video. Every week, Jake publishes a newsletter called Creator Hooks, where he scours through YouTube and finds the best titles and tells us why they're so successful. So I thought, after over a year and finding hundreds of awesome YouTube titles, I asked Jake what are his favourite 5 and why they would work for any creator, no matter what topic they cover on YouTube.
So there's a lot to like about this title. There's also one thing that I don't like, which we'll talk about that in a second. But one of the main things that I love about this is that it's talking about habits. And habits is kind of like a power word on YouTube right now. This title does 2 things to kind of like spice up the habit. 1, it's a list of habits. And then 2, it's a list of 1-minute habits. So 4 1-minute habits makes this video really tangible, and then it's also talking about a big benefit, habits that save me 20 plus hours a week. It's got a huge broad audience. Everybody wants to save 20 hours a week. Also the time frame of 1-minute habits, that makes this video way more enticing. And one thing I didn't like about this video is that it kind of finishes with a little bit of keyword stuffing. I don't really think that was necessary. Typically shorter titles are easier to read. Also, a couple of other examples of titles talking about habits. 3 habits that will make you a beast in matches. 3 feminine habits men find wildly attractive. And then accountant explains money habits keeping you poor. So this video went viral pretty recently. So habits are kind of on fire on YouTube right now.
And now we get to the most important part of the video, applying all of this to your channel. What Jake is doing here is teaching you title formulas. So take this title and simply fill in the blanks for your topic, your audience, your channel.
So I really like this title because it's a big warning. So it's got a lot of negativity, right? Telling you to stop doing this. It also has a lot of curiosity. You know, it has in the thumbnail, has an arrow pointing to the place where many people are standing in doubles. It probably comes natural to them. It's like a best practice. So when a YouTube title says, stop doing a best practice, it grabs your attention because it kind of goes against everything you've been taught, everything you assume is right. And challenging assumptions is a great way to get people to click. There's also kind of a prerequisite to this title, and that is knowing your audience. He knows that, you know, this is where his audience is standing when they play doubles. He knows their audience's hopes, dreams, fears, best practices. If you know that for your audience, that's going to let you use specific words and kind of speak to them on a deeper emotional level that they feel like, oh man, this creator really gets me. A couple of other examples of titles using this stop or a warning and negativity. Why I stopped writing carbon frames. You know, if you're a biker, you probably assume that writing carbon frames is good. You kind of stop, you do a little bit of a double take, like, hey, what's going on here? Stop using VLOOKUP in Excel. Why I switched to index match. Again, telling you to stop doing something that's good or beneficial or that'll save you time, grabbing your attention with a warning and kind of and curiosity there.
I'm kind of feeling a bit redundant, to be honest. Jake's got this covered.
So the main thing I like about this title is that it's giving the audience a new opportunity. They have new hope. You know, they feel like, oh, maybe this is finally going to be my big break. So that gets them really excited about it. Also, it's talking about changing. The audience probably put in their biggest dreams and changed forever, right? They filled in the blank there. So it builds a little bit of curiosity because it's open-ended, and it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but also it lets the audience just dream and kind of like, plug in whatever their biggest goal is. I used this framework in an A/B test recently. So title A was, this will have a huge impact on your mix, Excite Audio Lifeline Console. And then title B was, this plugin will change the way you mix forever. And that actually increased the CTR by 40% here. A couple of other channels that use the word change here. This study changes everything we know about bass fishing. This genius device will change videography. Again, open-ended, but promising a big benefit here.
If you are finding these on-screen title formulas a little difficult to use, then fortunately vidIQ does have a tool that'll do it for you. When you're uploading a video to YouTube, all you need to do is type in a couple of relevant keywords into a title, and then click Generate Title, and vidIQ will come up with something that's really curious, intriguing, aims for big goals, you name it, pick your favourite one, job done. But now, back to Jake.
5 things you should never tell coworkers. The two kind of click triggers here are, it's a list and it's a little bit of a warning, but also it attracts a big broad audience. Pretty much everybody has coworkers, so everybody can relate to this. Kind of feels like a little taboo.
The lazy way to enlightenment.
Hey, 42 here. The dooms.
Good morning everyone, I hope you're all doing fantastic. I'm Mystical, and in today's video I'm going to be bringing you the latest in XR news. We've got some really interesting pieces of news in regards to Meta, the Apple VR and AR headset, which seems to be much closer than people originally thought, and the PSVR 2. So, as usual, let's get right into the video. First things first, let's jump right into the meta news. And the first piece of news, unfortunately, is going to be not positive. Meta has once again fired more people, and this time it's going to affect 10,000 more employees. Meta has already done this before. Now it seems that they're at it once again. Following a mass layoff from Meta late last year, which affected 11,000 of its employees, the company announced today that it will be laying off another 10,000 employees. According to a Facebook post by Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, they're laying off employees across multiple rounds. It's also set to close hiring for 5,000 open roles and cancel more low-priority projects. Layoffs are set to begin this week, first hitting the company's recruiting organization. A second wave in late April will affect tech roles, while a third in late May will affect business roles. In the post, Zuckerberg calls this the year of efficiency, which the Meta chief says will optimize distributed work, increase developer productivity and tooling, and make the organization flatter by removing multiple layers of management. Zuckerberg also hopes to make it leaner by prioritizing higher priority projects. Now, that's pretty interesting. I do wonder what Zuckerberg means as high priority projects, as this wasn't mentioned. The company has lowered the prices of both of its headsets. Now they're losing more people, and they're planning on making the company flatter? It looks like they're trying to make things simpler, easier. All I know is that interesting times are ahead, and I guess we'll have to wait and see how this affects us. And to anyone affected right now by losing their job, I wish you the best in your future endeavors. With that said, let's move on to our next piece of news. Okay, now on to some pieces of news about the Meta Store review system, as developers are apparently quite frustrated. A number of Quest developers are expressing their frustration with several features of Meta's public review system for VR games on its storefront, with nearly
Microsoft has decided that OpenAI's DALL-E algorithm needs to be incorporated into Bing, but they're actually incorporating it in an interesting way. They're using that new DALL-E algorithm I made a video about a few weeks back, and that new DALL-E algorithm looked like it generated some really good looking imagery, lots of detail, more interesting results, more creative, and it looked competitive with Midjourney in a lot of ways, so that bodes well. We actually have access to this today. If you have access to Microsoft's new Bing chat feature, you will get access to this Bing...
Oh, balls.